Hello, English learners. Welcome back to another edition here with us at English Pod. My name is Marco.
And I'm Erica.
And today we are doing the third part of our Old English series. And today we're transported back to the 1970s.
That's right. So we're going to learn some 1970s slang, some phrases that were really popular back in the 70s, but are also still in use today.
Exactly. So it's going to be a very cool lesson today. And before we start with the dialogue, let's take a look at some of the words that we're going to find in Vocabulary Preview.
Vocabulary Preview.
Well, we have two words for you in Vocabulary Preview, and they're both found in the dialogue. The first one, roller rink.
A roller rink.
A roller rink.
Okay, so a roller rink. Let's break that down and let's look at the first part.
All right, so roller. We might recognize this from roller blades or roller skates.
Okay, so yeah, when you go rollerblading, roller skating, those things that you put on your feet to skate.
Right, wheels, not like a blade or a knife.
Exactly. So that's roller. And what about rink?
Rink is the place where you do skating.
Okay, so if you go to a roller rink, it's this big area where everyone can rollerblade or roller skate.
That's right.
Okay. And what about the next word?
A block.
Block.
A block.
Okay, so this is a noun, a block.
And a block is a part of a city that is surrounded by 4 streets.
Okay, so a city is made up of many blocks.
Yep.
And everyone lives on a block.
Exactly. So it's a square within the city.
All right, very good. So these are the two words that we previewed, and we're going to listen to them now in the dialogue. We're going to hear two guys just talking about normal, everyday things, but we're going to be listening to them in 1970.
Hey man, how's it hanging?
Hey man, everything is just groovy, baby.
Did you go to the roller rink on Saturday? I heard it was far out, man.
I wanted to, but I ran into this foxy lady that just moved to my block. I was chatting her up a bit, and then we mellowed out at her place.
Right on. Well, Jim went to the rink with Sherry, and he said it was dynamite. He was low on bread, but Sherry paid for everything.
Gravy! Jim is such a jive turkey, man. He's always hitting me up for cash. Anyway, you want to book and go grab some grub?
Yeah, man, I'm starving.
Okay, groovy dialogue.
Yeah, really nice, huh?
All right, so some interesting language in here. And like we said, it sounds a bit strange, but a lot of this is still used today in modern English. So why don't we look at some of these words in Language Takeaway?
Language Takeaway.
All right, on Language Takeaway today, we have the first word, far out.
Far out.
That was far out.
To be far out.
Okay, so it's just another way of saying
Cool.
cool. That
Yep.
was nice.
Yep.
It was really cool. So they went to the roller rink. It was far out. It was really cool. But the other guy couldn't go because he saw a foxy lady.
A foxy lady.
Okay, foxy lady.
So basically, a foxy lady is a really good-looking or sexy woman.
Right. Commonly, you would hear some men refer to a attractive woman as a fox.
Okay, so foxy lady. Now,
Okay.
Marco, can we say a foxy man?
No, this is a phrase that you would only use for women.
Okay, so foxy lady.
Foxy lady.
So after he met up with the foxy lady, they both just decided to mellow out at her place.
To mellow out.
To mellow out.
Okay, so mellow out. What does this mean exactly?
Basically, just to relax.
Right, so to relax, to take it easy. To mellow out.
So what did you do on the weekend?
Oh, nothing. I just stayed at home and mellowed out.
Okay. All right, and so the response to that was...
Right on.
Right on. Right on.
Right on.
And so basically they're saying, okay, good, I agree.
Yeah, this phrase, you can say as good, yeah, that's nice, or you can also say it as, well, correct, I agree. So why don't we listen to some examples of how we can use this word in other situations?
Example 1.
Right on. You got a high score. That's amazing.
Example 2.
You got the job? Right on.
Example 3.
Jenny was right when she told me she thought Rick was no good for me. I should have listened to her.
Okay, so I think that's pretty clear. We can see how it means correct or also, okay, good.
All right, right on. And now we also have another word that's similar to far out. He said gravy.
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 Now, if you look it up in a dictionary, it's going to tell you something else, right?
Gravy is a sauce you put on meat.
Right. But in this case, we say gravy is cool. It's nice.
Yep.
Right? So gravy.
That was gravy. Now, finally, at the end of their conversation, they said, wanna book.
Okay, let's book.
Book.
So to book as a verb.
Yeah, interesting verb. It basically means to leave a place quickly.
Okay, so we have to book. The police are coming.
Right. Or, I gotta book, guys, I'm late.
So book, to leave quickly, to leave suddenly.
Yep, and that word is used quite commonly today, isn't it?
Yeah, it's used among like younger people. You would say, yeah, let's book. This party is dead.
Okay, great. So there's a lot of pretty cool phrases in this dialogue, pretty groovy phrases.
Yeah.
Why don't we hear them again in context?
Hey, man. How's it hanging?
Hey. Everything is just groovy, baby.
Did you go to the roller rink on Saturday? I heard it was far out, man.
I wanted to, but I ran into this foxy lady that just moved to my block. I was chatting her up a bit, and then we mellowed out at her place.
Right on, right on. Well, Jim went to the rink with Sherry, and he said it was dynamite. He was low on bread, but Sherry paid for everything.
Gravy. Jim is such a jive turkey, man. He's always hitting me up for cash. Anyway, you want to book and go grab some grub?
Yeah, man, I'm starving.
All right, so now that we understand these 6 words that we saw in Language Takeaway, it's time for us now to take a look at some great phrases that we can use today in Fluency Builder.
Fluency Builder.
Okay, so at the start of the conversation, there was an interesting way he started talking to his friend, right?
All right, he said, how's it hanging?
How's it hanging?
How's it hanging?
Okay, so basically, how is it going?
How's it going? How are you? Now, you notice in the spelling that we do have a G at the end, ing, right?
Yeah, but usually you don't really pronounce the G in this context because it's very informal. So, how's it hanging?
How's it hanging? So he said everything was just groovy, and then he started telling him about how he met a girl and he chat her up a bit.
To chat her up.
Okay, so to chat somebody up.
So when you chat someone up, you talk with them, right?
Yeah, you're making conversation.
But it's more than just conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, you're trying to be a little bit flirty and maybe saying nice romantic phrases or something like that.
Yeah, so usually it's between a woman and a man, right? And it's the man who chats up the woman.
Yeah, exactly.
So a little bit of a sexist phrase here.
To chat someone up or to chat up a girl, right? Okay, so he was chatting her up.
That's right. And so they were talking about how Jim went to the roller rink, but he didn't have any money, right? Because Jim is always hitting his friends up for cash.
Okay, so to hit someone up.
To hit someone up.
So before we explain this word, let's listen to some other examples so then we can maybe understand the meaning.
Example 1.
Can you believe Patrick? He came up to me a month ago and tried to hit me up for some money.
Example 2.
When I was a kid, I used to always hit my dad up for lunch money.
Example 3.
This is the last time I lend you money. Don't even try to hit me up for more.
All right, so when you hit someone up for something, you ask for it.
So usually it's to ask for money, right?
That's right.
Okay, so to hit someone up. And now for our last phrase. Let's book and let's go grab some grub.
To grab some grub.
Grab some grub.
Okay, let's break this one down. With the final word, grub, what are we talking about?
Grub is an informal way of saying food.
Okay, so to grab some grub is to get some food quickly.
Yeah, let's go get some food.
All right, so maybe it's time for us to grab some grub. And while we're doing that, you can listen to the dialogue one last time.
man, how's it hanging?
Hey, man, everything is just groovy, baby.
Did you go to the roller rink on Saturday? I heard it was far out, man.
I wanted to, but I ran into this foxy lady that just moved to my block. I was chatting her up a bit, and then we mellowed out at her place.
Right on. Well, Jim went to the rink with Sherry, and he said it was dynamite. He was low on bread, but Sherry paid for everything.
Gravy! Jim is such a jive turkey, man. He's always hitting me up for cash. Anyway, you want to book and go grab some grub?
Yeah, man, I'm starving.
All right, so some interesting phrases, and even though some of these words you may not really commonly hear anymore, they might still be used in movies or something that's related to the disco era because it's very, very popular still, right?
Yeah, that's right. Some of our more advanced users could even use a lot of these phrases in a kind of funny way to reference back to 1970.
Yeah, exactly. So it's fun, and, well, you will use them or you will hear them from time to time, even today.
Hey man, how's it hanging? If you've ever watched classic American films from the 1970s or listened closely to iconic rock songs from that era, you might have heard slang expressions that now sound distinctly retro, yet remain remarkably vibrant and appealing. Phrases like far out, groovy, right on, foxy lady, and mellow out evoke memories of disco balls, bell-bottom jeans, lava lamps, and vinyl records. To many, these expressions immediately conjure a colorful, youthful, and rebellious past. Yet behind the nostalgia lies something far deeper. A language that mirrors the complex social, political, and cultural transformations of the 1970s in America. Slang expressions, though often viewed as casual or superficial, offer a unique cultural lens through which we can analyze history. Words don't exist in isolation. They encapsulate societal values, shifts in popular culture, generational tensions, political activism, and changing social norms. Thus, the slang of the 1970s, with its laid-back rhythms and playful exuberance, provides powerful insights into an era characterized by both profound social upheaval and youthful optimism. This essay will explore 1970s American slang, analyzing its historical context, cultural meanings, and enduring influence. By examining key phrases in detail, we'll uncover the rich social fabric of America during this transformative period. Beyond their catchy surface appeal, these slang terms represent a linguistic revolution, a reflection of America redefining itself in the wake of massive political and cultural change. Historical and social context of the 1970s in America. The decade of the 1970s in America was a time of paradox and dramatic contrasts. The era began under the shadow of the Vietnam War, with anti-war protests reaching their climax, deeply influencing American youth culture. Public disillusionment grew after President Nixon's Watergate scandal in 1972 to 1974, fundamentally shaking American trust in government and authority. At the same time, social movements for civil rights, feminism, environmentalism, and personal liberation gained momentum, radically reshaping American society and values. Vietnam War and youth counterculture. The Vietnam War profoundly shaped the consciousness of American youth. Draft resistance, protests, and anti-war activism were at their height. Young people, deeply disillusioned with traditional authorities and societal norms, began seeking alternative forms of expression, community, and identity. Hippie culture, born in the late 1960s, flourished into the 1970s, advocating peace, love, individual freedom, and an anti-establishment ethos. Slang expressions such as far out and groovy directly reflected these countercultural values, celebrating creativity, freedom, and nonconformity. For example, far out was used enthusiastically by young Americans to describe anything unconventional, artistic, or progressive, encapsulating the desire to distance themselves from mainstream society and its conservative values. Civil rights, feminism, and social movements. The 1970s also witnessed an acceleration in civil rights activism and feminism. Following the 1960s civil rights successes, the 1970s sought broader equality across gender, race, and sexuality. Women demanded greater recognition and autonomy, influencing popular culture, media, and even everyday language. Terms like foxy lady might seem trivial today, but they emerged amid shifting gender norms, as society became more open about sexuality and attractiveness. Although somewhat controversial in contemporary eyes, such terms reflected an increasing openness in expressing sexuality and shifting perceptions of femininity and gender roles. Simultaneously, African American culture continued influencing mainstream American culture, particularly through music, movies, and language. Terms like right on, meaning I agree, or exactly, originated in African American communities, becoming widely adopted by youth nationwide. Expressions initially connected to African American empowerment entered mainstream usage, symbolizing the slow, incremental merging of cultural boundaries and an increased acceptance and celebration of diversity. Environmentalism and the shift toward personal fulfillment. The 1970s were also characterized by increased environmental consciousness, triggered by events like the first Earth Day celebration in 1970. Concerns about industrial pollution, resource scarcity, and environmental degradation informed youth attitudes towards simpler living, reflected linguistically in expressions like mellow out. This phrase conveyed the era's desire for relaxation, slowing down, and rejecting consumerist frenzy. Young Americans increasingly turned away from materialism and embraced spiritual fulfillment, personal growth, and peaceful coexistence with nature, an ethos embodied vividly in their everyday language choices. Influence of popular culture and media. Popular culture during the 1970s, particularly music, film, and television, also played a pivotal role in disseminating and popularizing slang. Musicians like Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, The Doors, and later disco artists embedded these expressions in their songs, resonating powerfully with American youth. Hendrix's famous song Foxy Lady permanently etched the phrase into American vernacular, symbolizing sexual openness and rebellion against conservative standards of behavior. Similarly, movies like Saturday Night Fever captured the era's energetic optimism, immortalizing disco culture and its linguistic nuances. Media platforms increasingly brought slang from urban youth and countercultural communities into mainstream American homes, fostering widespread usage and adoption. Economic shifts in youth identity. Economically, the 1970s saw the first major downturn since the end of World War II, characterized by inflation, recession, and high unemployment rates. Young Americans experienced economic uncertainty firsthand. Expressions like low on bread, lacking money, referenced humorously in casual conversations, illustrated how young Americans developed a lighthearted linguistic response to their economic realities. Slang functioned not only as a means of cultural expression but also as a coping mechanism, an emotional release, and a humorous reflection on everyday life struggles. In summary, the slang of the 1970s is far more than just linguistic creativity. Each slang term encapsulates a piece of cultural history, an expression of anti-war sentiment, racial integration, gender liberation, environmental consciousness, and economic uncertainty. It's evident that the colorful vocabulary of the 1970s American youth was intrinsically linked to the decade's social upheavals, economic transitions, and shifting cultural identities. As we move into the next section, we will further explore specific slang expressions, analyzing in greater detail how they emerged, spread, and resonated with Americans of the 1970s. By understanding these words and phrases in greater depth, we gain deeper insight into the complex tapestry of American history and culture during one of its most dynamic eras. The 1970s were not merely defined by the social movements and cultural shifts previously outlined, but also by a vibrant, dynamic vernacular that sprang directly from these changes. The slang expressions popularized during this decade offer unique insights into the lived experiences, attitudes, and perspectives of young Americans. By closely examining specific phrases such as far out, groovy, foxy lady, right on, mellow out, gravy, to book, and many others, we gain deeper understanding of their broader cultural and historical contexts. Expressions of optimism and freedom. Far out and groovy. Expressions such as far out and groovy exemplify the optimistic, exploratory spirit that permeated American youth culture during the 1970s. Both terms originated in the late 1960s, but reached their peak usage in the following decade. Far out was frequently used to express awe, approval, or admiration for something extraordinary, creative, or novel. Its popularity symbolized the era's fascination with breaking barriers, be they cultural, societal, or artistic. For example, a psychedelic rock performance, a progressive political idea, or even unconventional clothing styles might be described enthusiastically as far out. Likewise, groovy encapsulated a sense of rhythmic harmony and aesthetic appeal. Initially derived from jazz musicians describing music that felt smooth and effortless, the term rapidly permeated youth culture to encompass any experience perceived as pleasurable, enjoyable, or effortlessly cool. Its widespread use in music and television media reinforced its role as a cultural signifier for everything relaxed, positive, and stylish. Notably, the animated television series Scooby-Doo, launched in 1969 but iconic throughout the 70s, frequently employed the term groovy, embedding it into generations of viewers' vocabularies. These optimistic terms represented youth culture's embrace of alternative values, emphasizing personal freedom, exploration, and pleasure over traditional, structured norms. Gender, sexuality, and social changes. Foxy lady and chatting someone up. Expressions reflecting changing attitudes toward gender and sexuality also flourished. The phrase foxy lady, famously popularized by Jimi Hendrix's iconic 1967 song, entered mainstream usage in the 1970s, capturing evolving views of femininity and attraction. While today such a phrase might seem simplistic or objectifying, at that time it marked a distinct openness and straightforwardness in expressing admiration and attraction. This linguistic development coincided with broader social shifts. The feminist movement actively challenged traditional gender roles, redefining expectations around female empowerment and sexuality. Similarly, the phrase to chat someone up, meaning to initiate conversation flirtatiously, emerged as social norms relaxed. This expression was emblematic of the era's growing acceptance of casual dating, open social interactions, and flirtation in public spaces. It revealed a changing society, one increasingly comfortable with openly acknowledging and expressing romantic or sexual interest. While somewhat casual, the phrase also reflects the gradual shift from highly formalized courtship rituals to more fluid, informal interactions between young adults. Relaxation and rebellion, mellow out, and right on. The terms mellow out and right on illustrate another significant aspect of 1970s culture: the pushback against stress, conflict, and established norms. The expression mellow out directly arose from countercultural values emphasizing peace, calmness, and rejection of societal pressures. In a decade marked by residual tensions from the Vietnam War, economic instability, and political mistrust, this phrase became emblematic of a cultural desire for peace, relaxation, and introspection. Popular music of the period, notably folk rock and softer acoustic genres, helped popularize the ideal of mellowing out. For instance, songs by artists such as James Taylor, Cat Stevens, and the Eagles communicated this relaxed, reflective ethos clearly, giving linguistic expression to a widespread cultural desire to disengage from the anxiety and turmoil of the outside world. Similarly, the phrase right on had roots in African American communities and civil rights activism. Originally used as a powerful affirmation during speeches and protests, it gradually entered broader cultural usage. Within mainstream American youth culture, right on symbolized solidarity, agreement, and support. It was commonly deployed in social interactions to express approval, empathy, or moral alignment, reflecting a generation's search for collective identity and communal validation amid social fragmentation and conflict. The widespread adoption of phrases like right on thus mirrored the broader societal trends toward multicultural integration and acceptance of diverse viewpoints. Economic struggles and youthful resilience, low on bread, and hitting someone up. Expressions related to economic circumstances also gained popularity in the 1970s, particularly among young adults facing significant financial pressures. The phrase low on bread, meaning short of money, humorously encapsulated widespread economic hardship among young Americans. In the aftermath of the post-war economic boom, the 1970s ushered in stagflation, simultaneous economic stagnation and inflation, high unemployment, and reduced purchasing power. Such slang terms allowed young people to acknowledge economic realities playfully and informally, emphasizing resilience and camaraderie rather than defeatism or despair. Similarly, to hit someone up, asking friends or acquaintances for money or favors, humorously acknowledged the era's difficult economic landscape. Young adults routinely turned to informal networks of friends for financial support, creating linguistic expressions that normalized and reduced embarrassment around financial strain. Such phrases illustrate the resourcefulness and humor young Americans brought to coping with economic uncertainty, emphasizing relationships, community support, and informal solutions over traditional economic stability. Movement in everyday life. To book and grab some grub. Finally, phrases describing everyday activities such as to book, meaning to leave suddenly or hurriedly, and grab some grub to get food quickly, reflected a casual, spontaneous, and mobile lifestyle typical of young Americans in this era. Booking emerged from youth culture's emphasis on spontaneity, independence, and informality, often used humorously or urgently in social interactions to convey a desire to escape dull situations or responsibilities quickly. It symbolized youthful freedom, independence from rigid schedules, and a preference for living moment to moment rather than following structured routines. Likewise, grabbing some grub epitomized the era's informal dining habits, marking a shift from formal, structured mealtimes toward more casual, flexible eating patterns. Fast food culture, exemplified by the nationwide expansion of chains like McDonald's, Burger King, and Taco Bell throughout the decade, normalized casual dining, quick meals, and spontaneous eating arrangements. This simple slang phrase highlighted changes in American eating habits, youth mobility, and everyday lifestyles, reflecting broader cultural shifts toward informality, convenience, and instant gratification. The slang expressions of the 1970s thus provide a vivid linguistic map of the era's cultural landscape. Each phrase or idiom conveys specific attitudes toward optimism and exploration, changing social norms, gender and sexuality, relaxation and rebellion, economic conditions, and everyday life. Far from being merely humorous or disposable words, these expressions embody the lived experiences, hopes, anxieties, and values of a generation navigating immense social, political, and economic change. In the following section, we will explore how the legacy of 1970s slang endures in contemporary language, demonstrating its continuing impact on American English and its sustained cultural resonance. Through this continued exploration, we gain further appreciation of the complex interplay between language, history, and culture, revealing how a seemingly casual vocabulary can serve as a profound historical record. Understanding the origins and cultural meanings of 1970s American slang phrases provides essential historical insight, yet it also reveals how language can shape and endure through generations. Even today, decades after their initial popularity, many of these slang expressions remain embedded in American English, resurfacing frequently in popular culture, media, and everyday conversation. By exploring the contemporary legacy of these terms, we can better appreciate their linguistic and cultural durability, highlighting how language simultaneously reflects and influences society over time. Media, popular culture, and nostalgic revivals. One significant reason behind the enduring presence of 1970s slang is the ongoing popularity of media and entertainment referencing that decade. Films and television shows set in or referencing the 1970s, such as That 70s Show, Dazed and Confused, Almost Famous, and Quentin Tarantino's Jackie Brown, help preserve and reintroduce these linguistic expressions to new generations. These media not only capture the atmosphere of the time but also familiarize younger audiences with phrases like far out, right on, and groovy. Television series like That 70s Show, 1998 to 2006, played a particularly crucial role in reintroducing a wide array of 1970s slang to contemporary viewers. The show's frequent use of these expressions in humorous, relatable contexts helped normalize terms that might otherwise seem outdated. For many millennials and Gen Z viewers, their first exposure to slang like groovy, right on, and mellow out occurred through this nostalgic sitcom, ensuring these phrases continuing place in popular culture. Similarly, movies that explore or romanticize the 1970s often leverage authentic slang to enhance atmosphere and authenticity. Films like Richard Linklater's Dazed and Confused 1993, set on the last day of high school in 1976, effectively captured the era's casual yet colorful language. Characters casually employing phrases such as right on, mellow out, and far out reinforce these expressions' contemporary recognition and understanding, embedding them into modern pop cultural memory. Linguistic persistence and evolution. Some slang from the 1970s persists in modern usage precisely because of its linguistic simplicity and versatility. Expressions like to book, to leave quickly, grab some grub, to get food, and chatting someone up, initiating flirtatious conversation, remain widely understood and frequently used. Their staying power lies partly in their functional efficiency. These phrases encapsulate complex concepts or social interactions concisely, humorously, and memorably. Moreover, certain slang terms from the 1970s have evolved subtly over time, adapting to contemporary nuances while retaining their core meanings. For instance, right on maintains its general meaning of enthusiastic agreement or approval, but has taken on additional ironic or nostalgic undertones when used today. Contemporary speakers might deploy the phrase humorously or affectionately, signaling an awareness of its retro origins, while still genuinely endorsing a sentiment or idea. Thus, the phrase simultaneously conveys genuine enthusiasm and subtle self-awareness about its cultural heritage. Likewise, terms like far out or groovy continue to appear regularly in contemporary American speech, particularly among those who seek to evoke nostalgia, irony, or playful humor. While less frequently used in everyday conversation without self-conscious irony, these terms still appear consistently in advertising, branding, and social media, reflecting an enduring fondness for 1970s aesthetics and attitudes. Such linguistic nostalgia often appears in contexts celebrating creativity, freedom, and individuality, values strongly associated with the original countercultural moment from which these phrases emerged. Influence on contemporary slang and youth language. The slang of the 1970s has also significantly influenced subsequent generations of slang, shaping the trajectory of American youth language over decades. Each new generation inherits linguistic traditions, modifying and adapting them to contemporary contexts, while retaining certain foundational patterns and meanings. For example, modern slang terms conveying excitement, approval, or affirmation, such as cool, awesome, sweet, sick, and even more contemporary expressions like lit, reflect the conceptual legacy of older phrases like far out and groovy. Although linguistic fashions change, the underlying desire for fresh, colorful, and evocative terms expressing positivity and approval remains consistent across generations. Further, the casual, relaxed, and direct communication style characteristic of 1970s slang laid groundwork for modern informal speech patterns and digital communication styles. Today's rapid-fire texting and online chat culture prioritize concise, colorful expressions similar in spirit to terms popularized in the 1970s. In this way, the legacy of 1970s slang extends beyond specific words, deeply influencing how Americans structure informal communication overall, favoring brevity, vivid imagery, humor, and emotional immediacy. The role of digital media in preserving and renewing 1970s slang. Social media and digital culture further ensure the continuous circulation and reintroduction of classic slang terms. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter facilitate rapid dissemination of language trends, memes, and references to past eras. Nostalgic internet memes frequently incorporate vintage slang to humorous or satirical effect, familiarizing new generations with terms once thought obsolete. Viral content referencing 1970s cultural tropes, such as disco music, retro fashion, or vintage movies, often deliberately resurrects classic slang, ensuring these expressions remain culturally relevant and linguistically alive. In this digital environment, 1970s slang also gains renewed meanings and uses, detached somewhat from their original context, but still understood intuitively by younger users. A TikTok video using the phrase groovy humorously, for example, may not replicate the exact usage patterns from 1970, yet it echoes and acknowledges the playful, carefree ethos associated historically with the term. Thus, digital media does not merely preserve these expressions but actively renews and transforms them, creating fresh layers of cultural meaning for successive generations. nostalgia, identity, and linguistic heritage. Ultimately, the sustained popularity of 1970s slang terms also reflects broader cultural attitudes toward nostalgia, identity formation, and cultural heritage. Each generation engages with past eras selectively, adopting specific symbols, artifacts, and linguistic expressions to construct identities and create connections across generations. By continuing to use, reference, and creatively adapt slang from previous eras, younger generations implicitly acknowledge linguistic heritage as integral to identity, community, and cultural continuity. Using slang from the 1970s allows younger generations to claim participation, albeit indirectly, in historical experiences they find meaningful or appealing. Thus, the ongoing appeal of expressions like far out, right on, or groovy represents not merely linguistic habit, but active cultural engagement. These phrases become linguistic bridges connecting generations, facilitating communication, empathy, and shared cultural memory across decades of American history. The slang expressions of the 1970s have thus maintained enduring linguistic and cultural significance well beyond their original context. Through popular media, linguistic adaptability, digital culture, and generational nostalgia, these phrases remain vibrant and relevant in contemporary American English. Understanding their historical roots enriches our appreciation of their current meanings and uses, demonstrating how language serves as both historical record and cultural resource. In the concluding sections of this essay, we will synthesize insights from previous discussions, further exploring what the enduring popularity of these slang terms reveals about American culture and the complex interplay between language, history, and society. Ultimately, this analysis deepens our understanding of linguistic evolution, cultural continuity, and the vital role slang plays in reflecting and shaping American identity. Having explored the historical emergence, specific meanings, and contemporary legacy of 1970s American slang, it becomes clear that slang serves not merely as informal language, but as a deeper reflection of cultural continuity and evolving identity. The continued usage and adaptation of these slang terms reveal how language functions not only as communication, but as a repository of collective memory, cultural values, and social cohesion. By examining how slang maintains relevance through cultural change, we uncover significant insights into American identity, generational relationships, and linguistic heritage. Language and generational identity. Language, and especially slang, plays a crucial role in expressing generational identity. Each generation develops distinctive vocabulary and speech patterns to define itself in contrast with predecessors, asserting independence, individuality, and belonging. The slang of the 1970s clearly demonstrates this function, emerging as young people sought new ways to articulate changing attitudes toward authority, gender, social norms, and personal freedom. Terms such as far out, groovy, right on, and mellow out thus signaled membership in a generation that prioritized self-expression, social justice, and individual authenticity over conformity or tradition. Today, continued usage or playful revival of these terms by younger generations underscores the enduring power of language in expressing generational values. Young people frequently reclaim slang from past eras to construct personal identities, engage with cultural heritage, and signal openness to specific ideas or attitudes. A teenager in 2024 jokingly saying groovy or far out does more than reference the past. They position themselves culturally, aligning their identity with values historically associated with freedom, openness, and nonconformity. Such linguistic choices highlight the enduring appeal of certain cultural ideals, reaffirming them across generational boundaries. Cultural nostalgia and historical awareness. The continued popularity of 1970s slang also points to broader patterns of cultural nostalgia and historical awareness in American society. Nostalgia, as a cultural phenomenon, provides emotional comfort, stability, and connection, particularly valuable in rapidly changing societies. The nostalgic use of slang from the 1970s provides contemporary Americans a sense of connection to a perceived simpler, more optimistic past. The resurgence of vintage fashion, vinyl records, and retro-themed films and television aligns with similar patterns of linguistic nostalgia. Expressions like right on or foxy lady carry powerful emotional resonances precisely because they evoke associations with historical moments seen retrospectively as exciting, transformative, or culturally significant. At the same time, nostalgia is never merely passive or superficial. It actively shapes contemporary identities and perspectives. Nostalgic engagement with historical language allows current generations to explore, reinterpret, and reevaluate past events and values. Understanding the cultural meanings embedded in expressions like "right on" or "mellow out" facilitates historical empathy, encouraging contemporary individuals to reflect critically upon past social movements, achievements, and challenges. Thus, nostalgic language use serves not merely to romanticize history, but to engage thoughtfully and critically with it, fostering ongoing dialogue about American cultural values and identity. Slang as social cohesion and cultural bonding. Another essential function of slang, and particularly enduring slang, is its role in promoting social cohesion and cultural bonding. Shared language creates a sense of community and mutual understanding among its users. Slang terms like "grab some grub," "hit me up," or "let's book" convey not only practical meanings but also shared attitudes, humor, and informal intimacy. Their continued usage provides speakers a comforting linguistic shorthand, signaling shared experiences and values implicitly understood by fellow community members. Moreover, enduring slang bridges generational divides, facilitating communication and bonding between older and younger Americans. Parents and grandparents who grew up using expressions like "far out," "groovy," or "right on" can connect meaningfully with younger generations rediscovering these phrases. Shared slang becomes a vehicle for cross-generational communication, storytelling, and relationship building, transforming language into an active agent of cultural transmission and familial bonding. Linguistic heritage and cultural education. The ongoing usage and revival of slang from the 1970s also highlights the importance of linguistic heritage and cultural education. Language encapsulates collective memory, preserving historical experiences, social values, and cultural identities within everyday speech. By continuing to use, reference, and creatively adapt historical slang, contemporary Americans implicitly affirm the importance of linguistic heritage, recognizing slang as a valuable cultural resource worth preserving, celebrating, and passing down to future generations. Educationally, teaching students about slang from various eras provides powerful insights into history, culture, and language evolution. Analyzing expressions like "far out," "groovy," or "mellow out" within classrooms reveals the interconnectedness of language, society, and identity. Students gain greater appreciation for the dynamic, living nature of language while simultaneously developing historical awareness and critical thinking skills. Thus, slang serves both pedagogical and cultural functions, enriching educational curricula with vibrant linguistic examples from American history. The dynamic evolution of language. Finally, examining slang as cultural heritage underscores the dynamic, evolving nature of language itself. Slang continuously adapts, expands, and transforms alongside changing social conditions, technological innovations, and generational shifts. Expressions originating in one historical context rarely remain static. Rather, they acquire new meanings, associations, and uses across successive generations. Terms like "far out," "groovy," or "right on" continue evolving linguistically and culturally, reflecting ongoing dialogues between historical tradition and contemporary innovation. This linguistic dynamism illustrates language's essential vitality, constantly reshaped by users who creatively reinterpret inherited expressions to suit current contexts. Slang thus exemplifies language's fundamental adaptability and resilience, demonstrating how historical linguistic forms continually inspire fresh creativity and cultural relevance. The slang expressions of the 1970s ultimately demonstrate profound connections between language, culture, identity, and heritage. Far from trivial or disposable, these terms represent crucial cultural touchstones, reflecting generational values, facilitating cross-generational bonding, fostering historical awareness, and embodying linguistic heritage. By continuing to use, adapt, and celebrate this slang, contemporary Americans affirm the enduring power and significance of language itself, recognizing slang as both historical artifact and living cultural practice. In the final concluding section of this essay, we will briefly synthesize key insights from previous sections, reiterating the central importance of understanding slang historically, culturally, and linguistically. We will also propose directions for further exploration, encouraging continued engagement with language as an essential element of cultural identity and social history. Throughout this essay, we've journeyed through the vibrant and culturally dynamic landscape of 1970s American slang. By examining the historical contexts, detailed meanings, contemporary influence, and cultural functions of expressions such as far out, groovy, right on, foxy lady, mellow out, and others, we've illustrated how these linguistic artifacts embody deeper social realities and ongoing cultural dialogues. This exploration has demonstrated that slang is not merely casual or ephemeral, but an essential cultural document, preserving memories, values, and identities across generations. Revisiting key insights. First, our historical exploration highlighted the profound ways that slang reflects the cultural climate from which it emerges. In the 1970s, American slang vividly captured the zeitgeist of social movements, counterculture, youthful rebellion, gender evolution, economic upheaval, and cultural optimism. Terms such as far out and groovy encapsulated the era's youthful idealism and rebellion against traditional norms, while expressions like foxy lady and chatting someone up reflected changing gender roles and attitudes toward sexuality and attraction. Similarly, phrases such as right on embodied social solidarity and civil rights consciousness, capturing moments of societal transformation and multicultural integration. Secondly, analyzing the ongoing legacy of 1970s slang emphasized how language evolves and maintains cultural resonance. These expressions have persisted and resurfaced repeatedly in contemporary American English through media, entertainment, nostalgic revivals, and digital communication. The continued popularity and adaptation of these phrases underscore their versatility, emotional appeal, and cultural significance. Expressions like groovy or right on, far from becoming obsolete, remain linguistically and culturally relevant precisely because they resonate across generations, encapsulating values of freedom, optimism, creativity, and authenticity still cherished today. Thirdly, examining slang's role in expressing identity revealed important insights into generational connections and cultural continuity. Slang serves as an essential tool for identity formation, community bonding, and historical awareness. Shared linguistic heritage, exemplified through 1970s slang, provides contemporary Americans with connections to past generations, fostering empathy, mutual understanding, and collective identity. Slang expressions thus act as bridges across generational divides, facilitating communication and preserving shared cultural memory. Implications for understanding language and culture. This exploration highlights the broader importance of viewing language as an essential reflection of cultural history and identity. Far beyond simple communication, language encapsulates collective memories, cultural values, and historical experiences. By examining slang closely, we develop richer appreciation of how linguistic creativity intersects profoundly with societal change, cultural expression, and human connection. Additionally, understanding slang historically provides powerful pedagogical opportunities. Language educators, historians, and cultural scholars can employ slang to enrich education, using these expressions to teach historical empathy, cultural awareness, and linguistic analysis. The dynamic interplay between language and culture, illuminated by examining slang, underscores the importance of interdisciplinary education and the valuable insights gained through linguistic exploration. Directions for future exploration. Finally, this essay's analysis suggests several fruitful directions for future exploration. Further research might expand comparative analyses of slang across multiple eras or examine cross-cultural adaptations of American slang globally. Studies could also investigate slang usage patterns across different regions, age groups, or digital communities, exploring linguistic variations and cultural adaptations within contemporary contexts. Moreover, researchers might explore deeper linguistic analyses of specific slang expressions, examining subtle shifts in meanings, usage, and associations over time. Such studies could illuminate further nuances of cultural transformation, generational attitudes, and social relationships captured vividly through linguistic changes. Ultimately, Continued exploration of slang promises exciting discoveries at the intersection of language, culture, and identity. As language evolves alongside culture, slang remains an invaluable window into understanding social histories, cultural values, and human experiences. By embracing slang as historical documentation and cultural resource, we gain profound insights into ourselves, our history, and our collective identities. In conclusion, the slang of the 1970s offers far more than nostalgic charm or linguistic amusement. Each colorful expression embodies cultural memories, generational identities, social values, and linguistic creativity, capturing vividly America's complex, evolving story. By studying slang carefully, we deepen historical understanding, enrich cultural appreciation, and recognize language's profound significance as both historical reflection and living cultural legacy. As we look back with appreciation at phrases like far out, groovy, right on, or foxy lady, we celebrate language's unique capacity to record, inspire, and connect. Slang may seem casual or temporary, yet its cultural resonance endures, reminding us powerfully of language's vital role in expressing human creativity, cultural identity, and social history. This enduring legacy confirms slang's indispensable place not merely within linguistic study, but at the heart of our shared cultural heritage and collective human experience.
The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word. Popular dance music, especially of the late 1970s.
Disco.
House.
Crib.
A performance, especially by a band.
Gig.
Used to say that something makes sense.
Right on.
An authority figure, like the boss or government.
The man.
A negative situation.
Bummer.
How's it going? How are you?
How is it hanging?
Cool, excellent, enjoyable.
Groovy.
An enclosed place for roller skating.
Roller rink.
The latest, cool.
Far out.
Sexy, attractive.
Foxy.
Part of a neighborhood surrounded by 4 streets.
Block.
Talk informally to a person you're attracted to.
Chat someone up.
Relax.
Mellow out.
Money, informal and old-fashioned.
Bread.
All right, cool.
Gravy.
A person who is unreliable or irresponsible.
Jive turkey.
Ask someone for money.
Hit someone up for.
Leave quickly.
Book.
Food, informal.
Grub.
Let's try that faster. A person who is unreliable or irresponsible.
Jive turkey.
Used to say that something makes sense.
Right on.
Food, informal.
Grub.
Popular dance music, especially of the late 1970s.
Disco.
Part of a neighborhood surrounded by 4 streets.
Block.
An authority figure, like the boss or government.
The man.
A negative situation.
Bummer.
Leave quickly.
Book.
Money, informal and old-fashioned.
Bread.
A performance, especially by a band.
Gig.
An enclosed place for roller skating.
Roller rink.
The latest, cool.
Far out.
Sexy, attractive.
Foxy.
House.
Crib.
Talk informally to a person you're attracted to.
Chat someone up.
Ask someone for money.
Hit someone up for.
Cool, excellent, enjoyable.
Groovy.
Relax.
Mellow out.
All right, cool.
Gravy.
How's it going? How are you?
How is it hanging?
Now say the word and hear it in a sentence.
Groovy. Where did you buy that groovy shirt? I really like it. Groovy. The party at Paul's house last night was groovy. Groovy. James has a groovy new motorcycle and he said he would let me ride it. Far out. I went to the cinema and saw the new Star Trek movie. It was far out. Far out. You got a job at Morgan Stanley? That's far out, man. Congratulations. Far out. Did you see how fast that car went? That was far out. Mellow out. I don't feel like going out tonight. I think I would just mellow out here at home. Mellow out. Chopin really mellows me out when I'm feeling tense. Mellow out. After final exams, let's go down to the beach and mellow out. Right on. Right on. You got a high score. That's amazing. Right on. You got the job? Right on. Right on. Jenny was right on when she told me she thought Rick was no good for me. I should have listened to her. Book. This party is really boring. Let's book and go to another bar. Book. The police arrived and started arresting people, so my friend and I booked as fast as we could. Book. Dan saw his ex-girlfriend at the restaurant and started to get nervous and ended up booking.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode and gained some new insights. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any future episodes. See you next time.